In this video, I'm going to start exposing the components in an input form. So we're going to try to show these inputs for components, reminders. Let's see how this is being used. So a reminder is schema reminders. Okay, so reminders is the model, and on there it has a polymorphic embed, which is the channel. And down here, let's take a look at this one. Reminders is the entire model. Then it has polymorphic embed inputs for given the form, and what is it? Okay, for the channel. Okay, so we probably have to have one of these for every one of the components. Well, let's see where we're at here. So we look at, let's close some of this. Is everything saved? I think I changed some colors. Okay. Yeah, we're fine here. Let's proceed to look at the live view for space edit live. So in here we have the index. You can add an entity. Maybe we need a handle event for selecting an entity. So let's bring up the page. Here, entity. Here we can add a Phoenix click. Select entity. And the Phoenix value will be what now? Phoenix value will be entity ID. Phoenix value ID. So if we go to our menu here, let's reload this page. Okay. We select this, we get a crash because there is no handler for handle event, select entity, and the ID. So let's add that. Define handle event. Select entity. And we get ID, ID in the socket. Returns no reply and the socket. And we'll just assign this into the space. So assign into the socket selected ID, selected entity ID is the ID. And initially in the mount we'll say that the selected entity ID is nil. So now it doesn't crash. Let's add some styling. Actually, is it still loading? Maybe it still is crashing. Handle event. Let's reload this page. that. Okay. Let's add some styling here. So okay, I'm looking to add an action, to add some styling here. So so maybe class equals if entity ID is equal to selected entity ID, then we'll say selected else. Can we do that? I don't know where the semicolons go. Let's do some Googling. Elixir if else on one line. If comma colon else. If this is true, do colon selected comma else colon nothing. Okay, so that'll give us the class of selected. Reload this. Let's inspect the source. Select that. Now this is selected. Now this is selected. And class selected underneath entities. So let's put this inside a class. UL. Class equal entities list. App CSS. How about UL class list or entities list? What was it called? Entities list. Li selected. Make it border 1 pixel solid yellow. Refresh this. Okay, cool. So this is highlighted, and let's show a section that if selected entity ID is something not equal nil, we'll say horizontal row, and we'll actually we need the components on the selected entity ID, right? So instead of saying selected entity ID, we should just say selected entity, because we're going to need to access its components very soon. So if we save that, let's change this. Selected entity. Entities, selected entity. We'll get socket assigns entities, which is a list of entities, and enum.filter filters the enum, returns only those elements for which function returns a truthy value, which is a function with the entity and the entity ID is equal to ID. So that should give us selected entity, or maybe this is results, and the head of results is the selected entity. Crash. What is this? Anonymous function, undefined function H. Okay, I thought that that was the head function. Elixir, get head of list. Functions. This is the first. Oops. Go back here. Refresh. Menu. This one. Okay. Now, let's show something. For component selected entity dot components do let's indent this a bit. What happens here? Let's just get the name of the component, right? So we can say component dot. Now a component, does it have a name? I think it has a type. So let's just list that out. Okay, it's crashing, I think. What's going on here? Enumerable not implemented for ecto association not loaded. Not loaded. I thought we imported all the entities with those things loaded. Let's see. Index. Get all entities for a space. Okay, so I think this needs to be list entities for space with components. Let's try this now. One more time. Still no good. What's going on? It's still not loaded? Oh no, here it is. Okay. We need to... Okay, this is good. Now we need to display a form around these. Just have each one of them be in a div. Each one of them can be a form. Let's see. We have inputs for blah blah blah. Let's grab that. Paste that here. Inputs for F. Reminders. Function reminder form. Inputs for Phoenix inputs for, what is this thing? So go form for blah 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 function F, and then you can create inputs for F. Inputs for can be used to work with single entities or collections. Phoenix Live View integration builds on top of this function to provide a function named form inside. Instead of doing this, form for, do form let F or so does that mean we have to load a change set for every one of these things? Component change sets. Let's try to get one of them to show. So if we have something selected, we have the selected entity, but we also want every one of their components to be made into a change set. So component change sets. see. Describe an entity. So repo.all entity. Entity ID equals this. And entity ID components. Components equal, well, actually, let's just do entities, and entity equals list dot first entities, and repo, okay, entity repo preload components equal okay, components equal entity dot components, right? Num dot map over components, or no, just give me the first one, first component equal this dot first components. Can you do, you don't know how to create this change set? Component data. How do you make a change set out of this? The library comes with a form helper in order to build form inputs for polymorphic embeds and display change set errors. In the entry point defining your web interface, add the following import. View, quote, imports and stuff, import polymorphic embed HTML form. This provides you with polymorphic embed inputs for. Here's an example form using the import function. Also renders a hidden input for the type field. Get the type of a polymorphic embed.
Oh, are you back here?
Where does this go? Def view lib your app web. Okay. Lib your app web here under view. Okay. Quote do use this, and this. So we want to say import this. Okay, so we've got that. And then inputs for F. So what would be a change set for a component? The only kind of component we have is vector 3, right? DXR components, vector 3, change set, which takes, this should be called vec3, right? Whoa, vec3. Validate required. They're all required. So I can say, let's alias this. Gotcha. Dot change set and vector 3 with what? Valid is false. All these are required. X y 2 3. There. This is okay. So if this change set was in the UI or in the socket, could we make a form for it? Let's just try and stick that in. So and would you be able to determine the type? So here it says you can determine the type using get the type of a polymorphic embed. Polymorphic embed. Get polymorphic type. It is component. I guess data. What is this third parameter? Sometimes you need to serialize polymorphic embed, and once in the front end, need to distinguish them. Returns the type of the polymorphic embed. So we have component, data, which is one of these. Just vector 3 now? Oh. The first argument of a poly must always be an atom. Okay. Component. Oh. I mean, I don't quite understand. Polymorphic embed, get the polymorphic type for the module and the data field. And the third one, it just gives back position. I don't think this, they're all vector 3. Okay. Give me the second one. Okay. This dot last from components. Is there such a function? Yeah. Now it gives you scale. So this is another component 2. Yeah, I can't stick it in here anywhere. There's nothing in here. There's nothing I can do here. I don't even know what this function does. Get the polymorphic type. Get polymorphic type. Types. Get field options from the schema. Okay. The schema and the field, module, or struct. Oh. Well, C2 is the struct. Module. The vector 3 field. No. Data is not a polymorphic embed. Component expected a map got nil for C2. Yes. No. Well, we know what the type is. We saved the type ourselves, so I guess we don't have a problem with this. I kind of don't understand this, because if you know this, then don't you know this? You would never need to use this function because you know this. So, all right. We have, I want to test the theory, so I want to put a change set into the socket. So we'll do that here. Which each of the components here, I guess we can create a list of change sets. Not really. Okay, so, yeah, the type for this thing, I wanted it to be, let me see component, or C2, but show me IO inspect C2 and struct false. How do you inspect with a struct false? Display struct. I got a notes here. My notes say it's structs false. Data struct component is blah 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 blah. Oh, so it's already converted into something. We don't actually see how it's stored. I inspect C2 structs false. This gives. Okay, so we don't actually. Well, here we know this is a vector 3, so you could get the type that way. To the. It's not right because C2 was scale. That's not what we want anyway. What we want is that it's a vector 3. That's the type. The field. C2 data. Vector 3. So they're assuming you only use that type one time. So it can't actually tell me the type. I don't know. Anyway, let's stick this in. Assign socket selected identity. Let's say component change set is. component that change set with vector 3. Is that right? Yeah. Set vector 3 and that. Let's give it some previous values. 1, 2, and 3. And forget about this. So we just slip that in. What's over here? Unexpected alias change set. Oh yes. So component change set. We need alias Elixir components. Components. Also give me vector 3. Components vector 3. Alias Elixir components vector 3. And let's deal with this. Change set 2 is undefined components change set. Okay, that is component. Spaces component. Spaces component. Component. What is components? So spaces used. Okay, we have a change set in there. And now let's create a form out of the change set. So component type, and how do we create a form for it? Looks like it's some kind of form for something like this. Form for let f for, and this is called component change set component. Component change set. Text input f is, does a component have a name? Component has a type. So let's see if that just breaks everything. Cut this. Compile error. Bring this out. Select this, which looked like it crashed. Expected a map got nil. Spaces component change set 2. Component change set. Expected a map got nil. component change set. Oh, component is this. It doesn't have the. No, it does. It has a change set. Component. Okay, what am I doing? Yeah, this is a component, and the yes. What is the thing we send in here? Attributes. So it needs a type. Definitely needs a type. And it also needs data. Got it. So type is type is position. Data is this. Okay, got a form. Not bad. And on that form, we use this stuff. Inputs for F, which is data form polymorphic for the data form data position position form, and then you can get position form x. This can be x. Something like this. Compilation error. Unclosed matching tag. Okay. I think it's this one. Form, between form and form. Just get rid of this form thing. What's happening here? Undefined function, polymorphic, embed inputs for. Probably need to restart. Undefined function. Oh. Okay. I think I need to